I'm going to wait for that dog to stop barking. I'm going to have to edit it
Excuse
out.
me, that dog is Gary.
You know I love Gary, but listen.
I think I'm going to get a knuckle tattoo.
That's Gary?
Gary. Uh-huh.
Please don't do that.
Remember when I was talking about getting a neck tattoo and you were like, no, you can't do that.
Not on the
I
moneymaker. Not on the moneymaker.
can.
I am not here for this. As someone who has plenty of tattoos, I would say proceed with caution. Welcome to Supercharged by AI, a podcast by AI Portland. I'm Megan Notarte, partner at Cloud4 and co-founder of AI Portland. And as usual, I am joined by Nicole Moores, my AI Portland co-founder and product design manager at Driveway. Good morning, Nicole. Hello.
Yo.
We are here after a very busy, very exciting couple weeks.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Super fun stuff in the world of AI plus Portland.
Yeah, lots of AI announcements this week that have been really hard to keep up with.
I'm glad you are.
Am I?
Just send me the highlights.
What
do I need to know?
I'm just like, okay, I gotta read the highlights because so much has happened. I mean, this is typical in the world of AI, but this week, OpenAI and Google with their announcements have just been like, oh, there's so much stuff to filter through. And actually, thank you, giant companies, for releasing things that were very relevant to our topic this week. The topic of human in the loop. We had a panel last night of really, really smart folks talking about how do we maintain our humanity in this brave new world? How do we support humans in these interactions with generative AI? It went from terrifying sci-fi stuff like AI clones. Oh my God, colonies on Mars came up at one point.
I think asteroid mining came up as well.
That did.
Also, the Minority Report got mentioned, which was hilarious.
Yes. Where do you think we should start our recap?
I think we really did start out with Donna saying we have to be really careful because of deep fakes and like even the influencers we follow online may be bots.
Yes. So Dr. Donna Davis, professor, University of Oregon, her areas of expertise happen to be with like AR, VR, metaverse, avatars. Her research is pretty fascinating. And yes, she was like, yo, if you follow influencers on Instagram, you should really check to see if they're human. And I was like, I feel like I only follow a handful of influencers and I swear they're real people, but what if they weren't?
You know, I'm not on social media, so this whole thing is really hard for me. And I'm like, who cares if they're real? Like, are they real anyway? Even if they're
are they real?
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
what does real
like,
mean?
It's so curated and like not real that I'm just like, if they're bots, whatever.
I mean, I follow some like fashion influencers, right? Like people who look like me. And so when they try on clothes, I can see how it fits them. And like I might buy it because I can tell that those jeans fit someone with a body type like mine really well, right? It's less risk. But like if that person was not a real person, that kind of, I don't know, maybe it doesn't help me as much as I thought it did.
I don't know. Like, people have probably already thought of this, but like, I wish I did have a clone of me to like virtually try on all sorts of things so that I could see what it looked like on my.
I mean, it is
self.
a thing.
That would be amazing. It is a thing.
When we were at the Silicon Forest tech crawl meetup that we went to, we had a booth at a couple weeks ago. I met a startup founder who's doing something just like that. Right. Like, I think that is probably coming. So maybe you're right that like it sort of does it really matter? Does it really matter? I mean, we did also talk about how these things blow up economic models too, right? So there is an economy of influencers, right? They're making money off of my Amazon purchase or whatever. And like, if you don't need a person to do that, there goes that.
Honestly, totally. And like that wasn't a thing in the past, right? That's a relatively new thing. And before that, we had Mary Kay and like people who came to your house who like sold products door to door. And like now there's the internet. and that doesn't happen as often.
Yeah,
So
like progress. It reminds me of something I thought was kind of profound that Pedro said. So Luraschi is the founder of a company called Hal9. They do AI data analysis tooling. And he was talking about, he gave this analogy of a washing machine. And it was profound for me because, on the one hand, he said that the washing machine itself represents a kind of loss, a loss of a particular vocation and a community, because before the washing machine, and maybe way before the washing machine, right? Like, women would wash clothes together.
Mhm.
So not only was it that that job has gone away, but that community went away. So there was this feeling of loss, but also he would not want to go back to not having the washing machine. And that was the first time I had heard. I mean, we've talked about like blacksmiths and farmers and other vocations that have changed profoundly because of progress, but that was the first time that I had really heard it in that way, talking about loss and community, but also progress.
Right, right, right. That human connection of like getting together and like doing this
Yeah,
like chore together.
right. But also, I wouldn't want, I wouldn't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, totally. Agreed. Agreed.
What about, we kind of started going into this, but there was a lot of discussion about AI companions, and probably
Hmm.
because of the announcements this week, where we could see that both Google and OpenAI have either released or plans to release, very human sounding audio companions, assistants. And some of the videos, if I'm sure you've seen, where it's like conversing back and forth and laughing, and it's very convincing. I think people were both rightly terrified and very compelled, right?
Yeah, those voices, like the amount of just inflection and emotion that the AI voices have is just, it's kind of eerie. I think a lot of people have made the correlation to the movie Her, where the AI assistant has the voice of Scarlett Johansson.
Always bringing the celebrities to it. Last night it was Jeff Goldblum.
Oh my gosh, yes, my favorite zaddy. Yeah, I mean, I would fall in love with my AI assistant if she sounded like ScarJo too, you know? But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that these voices sound really real, right? And we we tend to put humanity onto all sorts of things, right? I mean, think about Wilson in Castaway. That was a volleyball. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it doesn't
So
need to
the
sound
idea
human for us to
it
anthropomorphize it.
doesn't.
Yeah.
No, no, no. And so, like, just listening to those voices and seeing the interactions, you're like, "Oh, wow." I guess we talked a lot about, like, replacing human connection with these AI partners and friends and stuff like that. And also how we probably wouldn't do that completely. Like, maybe for some in special circumstances, it could be a complete replacement, but for most people, it won't, right?
Yeah. There was a lot of discussion about the onus being on us to be active participants, to be active humans in the loop, right?
Do you think you would ever have an AI friend?
Well, so after listening to the latest hard fork, oh no, there's one out today probably. So last week's hard fork, they really did not seem ready for prime time. Like what
Yeah.
Kevin Roos was talking, and the interview they did with his new AI friend, I was like, nah, I mean, I got plenty of friends that I spam with
Mhm.
text messages all the time. Thank you very much, Nicole. Like, I Marco Polo my other friends a lot. I don't have a need for that, especially when it's still so weird, but I could
Yeah.
totally see trying to get an assistant.
I literally could see it as an outlet if I wanted to talk to somebody about my secret. You know what I
Right.
mean?
No, I
That
agree. Or like there are times where like I know I'm spinning on something ridiculous, or like I have a ton of anxiety. Ridiculous? What? Like the face you just made.
I know
Never,
because
Megan. Never.
it's
You
about
never
the
do.
receiving. I mean, I think they said this in the hard fork episode where it's like caregivers. Eh,
Yes.
caregivers who are so sick of going to their friends and being like, "Oh, I'm exhausted and I'm caring for my aging parent who's essentially dying or like terminal or whatever," and they use these things as like an outlet so that they don't have to go to their friend. So in that scenario, I am the caregiver for you,
Yeah.
with whom you,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
give me all your anxiety, and then sometimes it does make me anxious,
Yeah, right,
you know
like,
what
you
I
give
mean?
it
Like,
to your
I
friends
wasn't anxious
until
I
you
wasn't
said something.
anxious,
Yes.
and then I open my phone, I'm like, "Oh my god, now I'm really nervous, now I'm really anxious, now I'm thinking about all the things that could go wrong because Megan is freaking out."
I always pull it together, Nicole. I always pull it
You
together.
do, you do.
Um, yeah, it's an interesting thing, though. I could totally see knowing that you're not burdening somebody else with the thing you really just need to get off your chest. I mean, that's why it's a little bit why we have therapists. But I would even
Yeah, but
say with a therapist, sometimes you're like, ugh, I always talk about this issue or whatever.
right,
Or I don't really want to
totally.
admit, like, now I like my therapist and I don't actually want to admit how horrible of a person I am to them.
100%, and it's like, I don't know, there's something really freeing about it not being a person that you'll encounter in the universe, you know what I mean? I don't have an AI friend, but I might get one.
But to me, it comes back to, like, trust, right? Like, I mean, and this is true of a human friend, right? Like, there are people that I know, like, I'm not gonna tell something very sensitive because maybe they'll tell other people or later it will come up and I'm like, "Oh, why did I say that?" Right? So, like,
Mhm.
we work on those levels of trust with human friends. Like, can you trust the companies that are behind these new AI companions with your the thing you wouldn't even tell a friend?
You know, last night when I got home, I was like, "Oh my gosh, okay, what a day. I need to decompress. I need something terrible to watch on TV."
Mhm.
And I started watching the documentary about Ashley
Oh, I
Madison.
saw that. Yeah, I didn't.
And the people who trusted all their personal information to a website and it I didn't watch the end of it, but we all know the story. It
Right.
ultimately got hacked,
Yeah.
right? And I think it's the same question, how much you trust these companies with your secrets or your problems or just,
I just
you
don't
know, just a
know.
sheer amount.
Like,
Yeah.
did you read this week that there's some sort of bug in iOS that surfaced deleted photos? So
Mm.
photos and from what I had read yesterday, and maybe something has come out since then, that no one really understood why this had happened. So they weren't like in your last 30 days of deleted images or something. It's just like previously deleted images just came up. I don't have to give you a scenario there where like you would be horrified by that, right? So like deleted
Yeah.
doesn't mean deleted. So do we trust?
Deleted never means deleted.
I know. But like would you tell your secrets? I don't know. We talked about trust last night too. And
Yeah.
one of the arguments that Pedro made was that like it's so important that we start looking at open sourcing models. And he was talking about how Facebook is being forced towards that only because they're the underdog in terms of the LLM market share or whatever. And also
Mhm.
probably regulation in Europe that's happening. Um, but I don't know. I don't know how you get this big 3 or whatever to care about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that was kind of like the theme where we got to it was we have to care, right? There was this almost civic duty that we talked about last night where it's up to all of us to get involved, understand what's going on so it's not just up to these companies
Yeah,
how this stuff plays out and what regulations. And then also it's also up to us to use them so that they're trained more on our
yeah.
humanity than what the companies
Yeah, someone
deem.
said, "Bring your best self to it," and I thought that was interesting. We gave a talk on Wednesday to a conference with 300 HR professionals, and we were only able to take one question, and the one question we were able to take was basically about how unethical and bad AI is, and how do you square that up? And I've been thinking about that more. We have that question a lot, right? Like, I get it. It's a kind of fundamental question. But what after last night's conversation, I was thinking about how, if we don't do anything, something extreme happens. Either the techno optimists are right and we all get to create art all the time and everything's great, or the people who think that this is going to destroy the world end up being right because they haven't done anything. They haven't participated
Mhm.
at all. So like in this
Mhm.
conversation, it did come up that like we have a responsibility, not just on regulation and that big data privacy law that's going through Congress. We need to be supporting that, but also in the use and understanding of what's happening. Like it's a call to
Totally.
action to get off of the sidelines and understand.
Right, and these models are being trained on how we're using it.
I thought the free labor thing was interesting. I think it was Pedro was like, also realize that you're doing the work for these companies for free. And I thought
Mhm.
that the logical conclusion there was, so don't do it. But it wasn't. It was like,
It wasn't.
you can make demands on how these things work because
Right.
you are the one powering them.
Yeah. I don't know. This is a total tangent, but, like, as a woman, I feel like my views of unpaid labor are skewed. You know what I mean?
So much of what I do is unpaid labor.
All I do is sleep. Never pays me. I'm so tired.
It's
But
true.
I'm like, I like, that was shocking to me, and I was like, I should have realized that. I'm like, duh, it is unpaid labor, and we are training it,
Yeah.
but
But
yeah.
it wasn't don't do it. It was
Do it.
do
It
it
was do it.
and demand accountability and let's help build what works best for humanity, not what's going to destroy humanity.
Yep, 100%.
There was a lot of talk about the future of work, which always happens. I mean, because this is obviously a huge impact on the future of how we work. There was talk about what new skills people need to bring to the table in order to harness this technology, entrepreneurial skills, vocational creativity. And then Janet Johnson, founder of the AI governance group, was on the panel as well. And she was talking about the importance of critical thinking as a skill, which
Yeah,
Donna, professor, also brought up. What
yeah.
was your take on all of that?
So if I go back to Pedro's entrepreneurial spirit and like he made the comment that we can't just follow procedure anymore. Like if you're in your job and you're just like, here, I do XYZ, if you just continue to do that, you will become irrelevant. And that it takes someone who's like, what can I do with this? And as a creative person, I was like, well, me and my fellow creatives are like primed for this moment because we hardly ever are like, first it's one, then it's two, then it's three. Like, that's just not how we work.
Yeah.
So to me, I kind of perked up at that and agreed that you do have to be entrepreneurial. You do have to sort of think outside of some of the boxes we've been put in.
Yeah.
And to me, that's inspiring. And then critical thinking, this comes up all the time. It's just the tool you need it in order to be able to use AI effectively,
We've
right?
always
And I
needed it though. And I think that maybe that's the thing that's terrifying. Like the rise of social media requires us to have incredibly complex critical thinking skills when we're looking at like Facebook and whatever
oh, I would
news.
like to argue with you that the opposite is true, that most people get on social media to not think
But that's my
critically.
point. My point is it should require us. Like we need it because we already can't believe whatever we see on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And so the argument that like we need to have even more of these skills now with the advent of generative AI, like I 100% agree, but I don't know, I have kind of pessimism that people are going to be able to engage at that level because they're not doing it now.
Oh, yes, I agree with that. And even I think it was Donna said we are right now we're void of critical thought,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to say about that, you
We
know?
just have to keep
Like,
pressing, right? Like
or is it or people those who think critically will, and those who don't will continue to believe what they see and just wanna, like, mindlessly scroll feeds and, like, thumbs up things.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
I think it was Lindsay talking about like guardrails that these systems can put in place in order to encourage human interaction or critical thinking. I think her company, Interverse, is working on AI simulations, almost like role playing kinds of things. And in those cases, like could the AI detect that you really haven't spoken to regular humans in a while and then encourage behavior for you to get outside and to go do things
Mhm.
or encourage additional critical thinking. Like, there's no reason that they couldn't do that if designed
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, totally. She said that she was working with Claude, right? Like maybe Innoverse is working with the Claude model and how it was prompting her in that way,
Yeah.
right? And like showing its edges and giving her sort of the guardrails to work within. She even said that AI is kind of like a check for her. You know what I mean? That it
Yeah.
was helping her.
I hadn't honestly, I think, had not thought about how the design of these tools could, and I think this is what she said, it can either be a lifeline or destruction. And it's
Hmm.
not just the technology itself, it's the considerations that are made in the implementation of it. So, like I said, could these tools encourage good human behavior? Or is it like the kind of addictive behavior that we have with social media right now? Right? Like, I mean, social media is
Hmm.
designed to keep you there and keep you
Hmm.
scrolling. It
Like
doesn't
Las
it
Vegas.
doesn't
It's like
have to
Las
be,
Vegas.
right? It doesn't have to
No
be.
windows.
No
You
windows,
don't
no
know what time
clocks.
it is.
Yes. And she also said, and I didn't realize this because I haven't done any integrations with Anthropic, that if, it asks for the purpose, and if your purpose is what it considers to be like sensitive, it requires additional rationale or explanation on how you're using it. So these guardrails are evolving. And like Janet says, we are beta testing this technology. But I mean, beta testers give input. So it
Hmm.
is our responsibility to be good beta testers, I guess.
Well, I think maybe it was Lindsay was saying, like, we should give it more context when it gets things wrong
Hmm.
instead of just, like, the thumbs up.
Yeah.
Who does
Do you
that,
ever
you
do you
know?
ever click those buttons? I never click those buttons.
Sometimes if it's really wrong. This is true of me as a person in the universe who exists. Like, when it doesn't work, I always assume the problem's me.
Same.
Like, I did not do it right. I did not put in a prompt and did, like, something missing. I am the problem
Yes.
always.
I have passed this quality on to one of my kids the other day. He ordered a Coke at a restaurant and it came out and it was like they hadn't put any of the fizzy, the carbonation in it. And he drank it a bunch and he's like, "This one tastes weird." And I drank it and I've had this happen before. So I was like, "Oh, the machine must be broken or something. Let's ask them."
Mhm.
And he's like, "Oh man, I just thought like I didn't remember how Coke should taste." Like
What?
he thought it was him. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that we talk about that a lot, Nicole, like, just like you said, I automatically think like, "Oh, maybe I'm just weird today."
Yeah, or I ordered the wrong thing. There's
Yeah,
something I did to get the outcome that I got instead of assuming it's, like, not me, that it's broken, you know? I'm always like,
exactly.
"Am I missing something?"
That's exactly right. That is generational, as it turns out. Well, it is now. Um, Anything else that you had on your, like, big takeaways from last night?
I love Donna. I wanted her to come on this podcast. Yesterday was Global Accessibility Awareness Day.
Yes.
She does a lot of work with AR and VR, and she was talking about accessibility and folks with disabilities going into VR and like inhabiting bodies with different abilities. And she asked this question, like, what does it mean to get outside of the body you physically inhabit and go into these spaces and be able to do other things? That's exciting.
Yeah, Janet was telling me about some of Donna's research around people who inhabit childlike bodies in the metaverse and how it allows them to work through some childhood traumas and stuff like that.
Oh, interesting.
And it kind of ties back to this idea of how do we use these tools maybe in therapeutic senses that we had not already thought about. I have
Totally.
very little bit of like any sort of experience or notion of what the hell is happening in the metaverse and like with avatars. That is not an area that I have explored very much. Um, Donna has, and it would be
Yes.
so interesting to hear like what that has been like because I have not don't have a headset. Is that what it?
You don't? Y'all don't have one of those at home?
Do you?
But we have one. I mean, I just played Fruit Ninja on it,
What
you know what I mean? I wasn't
a
like
which one?
the Oculus,
Oh
I think,
no,
is
we
what
do
we
not have
have.
an Oculus.
You
Wow.
y'all didn't get into that? That was, like, prime pandemic,
Yeah,
like, I have
no.
nothing better to do. I'm going to
Play Fruit Ninja on the
Uh,
Oculus?
yeah, the kids loved to watch me do it and how I would freak out, you know what I mean? And they just loved watching me play it.
Funny. The most entertaining part was what was happening in the physical world, not what was happening in the virtual world.
It was about the experience I was having, but not me
Yes.
experiencing it.
Yes.
Them experiencing me experiencing it.
That's right. I was really into our panelists last night, and I thought that the level of discussion was just very interesting. I want to
Agreed.
spend time with each one of them and pick their brains on the way that they're thinking about this because I think they're all attacking it from slightly different angles. It's always just so fascinating to hear
Agreed.
how people are thinking through this. And the audience was very engaged and had good questions about why do humans need other humans with all of this technology.
I think, yeah, that was an interesting conversation, right? It's like if we all have partners or we're satisfied with our AI partner or our AI friend, like, do people stop connecting in a physical realm and we're not like propagating the species?
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah. Forgot about that part. That was a level of concern I haven't risen to,
I
about
just
like
don't
population
think
replacements.
I just literally, if there's one thing we know is like people will populate. You know what I mean?
People like to get it on.
Exactly. Like, I just don't ever foresee that being an
I mean,
issue
I
at
don't know
all.
though. Like population growth has slowed in developed countries. Like
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're far. Okay, so a lot of what Google talked about is not out yet. We're far from that real concern because I don't think, and all of our actual roboticists among our group can correct me, but I don't think that um the physical robot side of things is moving at exactly the same pace as like the generative AI stuff. And so what I'm saying is like there's been such a growth of like these virtual companions.
Mhm.
But that like having a physical companion that was not a human is we're not there. We're not anywhere near that
We're
yet.
not no, we're not there yet. I think we talked about, like, robots to do your housework, and you're like, "Have you seen my vacuum? It
Yeah.
can't even
The
go,
robot
like, it."
vacuum can't go up and down a step yet. Like
No.
we are
We're
far, we're
far.
far from that.
We haven't even mastered the robot vacuum
But
yet.
also, I'm here for that. When
Yeah.
I have a sunken living room because my house was made in the late '80s, and I could use a robot vacuum that could go up and down that step. So please, let's make that happen.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Oh, man.
It was interesting in that Hard Fork episode about how with the AI friends, like, they'll text you during the day.
They'll text each other.
Yeah, they text each other. I thought that was fascinating. I'm not sure how I envisioned you connected with your AI friends, but I thought that was like, "Oh my gosh, they text you, and you can text them just like you would a normal person."
Just seems so hollow.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe I'm just, like, such a curmudgeon when it comes to, like, social media. I'm like, "That's hollow." Like, are you connected with your friends on social media? How is that? I guess those are real people, so arguably it's
Yeah,
better,
I will
but I
like
just
see them somewhere at some point, probably.
really?
I
I
mean,
don't know. The majority of the people, like, on Facebook and Instagram, those are people you're gonna see.
that's how I have cultivated my social media now. Like most of my social media are people that I like know, and it's
Mhm.
family and actual friends. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm super glad though, speaking of social media, that I'm able to add our smart panelists to my social media. So, special thanks to Pedro Luraschi, Dr. Donna Davis, Janet Johnson, and Lindsay Richman for sharing their expertise with us. I can't wait to continue the conversation with them. Thank you again for listening to this episode of Supercharged by AI. Subscribe to get all the latest episodes and check us out at aipdx.info for more information.